Welcome. The purpose of today's training is to outline the steps to submit an acceptable tiered plan of correction when you receive a tiered inspection summary. You'll know that you have to submit a tiered plan of correction when you read the correction required section of your inspection summary. In Provider Self-Service, you should be able to drag the bottom right corner to view all of the written language in that section at one time. And so you will notice under the correction required section of this inspection summary, we do have a tiered LIS because the language specifically says tiered LIS. And in this example, we have 3 tiers, which means there's going to be 3 separate pieces that we have to address when we submit our plan of correction. You may receive a tiered inspection summary with 2 tiers, or maybe there would be more than 3. But in this example, we're going to have 3 tiers. And so for this example specifically, the regulatory violation was that there is a lapse in supervision, but you may receive a tiered LIS for other areas of noncompliance. We're just going to use supervision in this example. So to address each tier, we're going to have to put a statement in our plan of correction for each tier, which includes a date that you will make that correction by and a statement as to how you will make the correction. So in this example, tier number 1 is that children must be supervised at all times. This portion of the plan shall have an immediate correction date. For simplicity purposes for this training, I do already have my plans of correction typed out, and I will be copying and pasting those into this box. But for those of you that are going to be completing a plan of correction, you'll be typing it in this box as you go. So my first plan of correction will address tier number 1, and so I did go ahead and put a 1 here to show that it corresponds with tier 1. I have a date, which is March 3rd, 2025, and my statement is that children will be supervised at all times. Because the tiered LIS language stated that children must be supervised at all times, and this portion of the plan shall have an immediate correction date. So, in this example, I am receiving this inspection summary on March 3rd. The lapse in supervision occurred March 3rd, and so for me to have an immediate correction date, I'm going to make sure that children will be supervised at all times from March 3rd, 2025. Going back up to this tiered LIS language, we're going to read tier 2. And in this situation, tier 2 states that the legal entity must arrange for all facility staff to receive a minimum of 2 hours of training regarding supervision of children. The legal entity must receive DHS approval of the training content prior to scheduling the training. This operator shall provide a date for when this training will be completed. So I'm going to go ahead and put in my plan to meet that requirement. You will notice that I did put a number 2 to show that it corresponds with tier 2. In this example, I'm going to have my staff complete their training by April 15th, 2025. So I'm putting the date that they will have completed all of that training by. And my statement is that all staff will receive a minimum of 2 hours of training and supervision. The training will be scheduled upon approval of the content by the regional office. And to go back up to our tiered LIS language, for tier number 3, the requirement is that the legal entity must submit documentation in a format approved by DHS, proving that the facility procedure for counting children is followed at all times, e.g., a checklist. The legal entity will confirm continuing compliance by sending copies of the documentation to the Regional Office of Child Development and Early Learning on a weekly basis for a period of 3 months after DHS approves the documentation format. The correction date for this portion of the plan shall be at minimum 3 months from the date the regional office approves the checklist. So from that, we know that we have to do count sheets for at least 3 months and that they have to be approved first. So when I'm entering this plan of correction, again, I'm putting a 3 to show that it corresponds with tier 3. My date here is going to be June 15th, 2025, because I know I have to do the count sheets for at least 3 months, and I need to give myself a little bit of time to get my format approved before I start using them. So June 15th, 2025 is going to be my correction date, and my statement is that the legal entity will begin using a checklist to count children as soon as the form has been approved by the regional office. The legal entity shall do this checklist for a minimum of 3 months from the date the checklist is approved and will send it to the regional office weekly. And I'm going to make this box a little bit bigger so we can see this statement all in one. And I'm just going to make sure that for each tier, I've submitted a plan of correction to correspond with whatever the requirement is for that tier. And that for each tier, I have the date that I will have that part of the required plan of correction completed by, and a statement indicating how I'm going to make those corrections. And then we still have the provider's plan to maintain compliance section. We're only going to need one statement for this section, and this is going to be how we're going to maintain compliance with the regulation going forward. So we've already specifically addressed the requirement in each tier. This is just going to be how we're going to comply going forward with the regulation. In this case, it is the regulations for supervision. And so if I scroll all the way back up here, we have a correction required section. The language before our tiered LIS is the regulatory language that is required to be followed. And that's a good place to reference when you're writing your plan to maintain compliance section. So in this case, for a supervision violation, the correction required is that children on the facility premises and on facility excursions off the premises shall be supervised by a staff person at all times. Outdoor play space used by the facility is considered part of the facility premises. Each staff person shall be assigned the responsibility for supervision of specific children. The staff person shall know the names and whereabouts of the children in his assigned group. The staff person shall be physically present with the children in his assigned group on the facility premises and on facility excursions off the facility premises. So I've already entered my plan of correction here. So my plan to maintain compliance is that children will be supervised at all times. The responsibility for supervision of each child will be assigned to a staff person. Each staff person will know the names and whereabouts of the children in their assigned group and will be physically present with the children in their assigned group at all times. The director will check on supervision in the rooms daily. And for the provider's correction date, we're going to put the last date of correction for the last tier that we will have completed. In this example, that is going to be tier 3, and that date that we've already entered in this box up here, the provider's plan of correction box, was June 15th, 2025. So that's the date that we're going to enter in the box down here with the last date of correction. So everything looks good. I've submitted a plan of correction for each tier to include the date and the statement as to how those tiers will be completed. I've entered a plan to maintain compliance, and I've entered the provider's correction date with my last date of correction. So this is the format that any tiered plan of correction should look like when you are submitting it, regardless of what the actual violation is. This is the format that it should look like when you submit it.